All right, welcome to Radio. It's always nice to catch up again with guests that I've had on the show semi recently and sort of find out what they've been doing in the time in between. And the guest on this episode is someone who I was sort of just introduced to really for the first time last year. And we're following up now and kind of, things have obviously changed in terms of, well, let me rewind a bit. Last time I talked to you, it was in the middle of the pandemic. Shows weren't happening. Lots of things were sort of up in the air. And now you're able to play shows and you have an exciting one coming up. But before we get into that, if you'd like to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is that you do musically, that would be a great way to start.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Sam. My name is Tetyana. I grew up in Canada, but I was born in Ukraine. And I went to the U of M in Winnipeg for my bachelor's of jazz performance. And then I moved to Spain to do a Berkeley master's degree. And I'm currently still living in Spain after completing my degree. And I'm happy to be back in Winnipeg. And yeah, like you said, with COVID being less of a factor now, we're seeing shows come back. So I'm excited to be booking some things and to be playing some things and basically uh, to really present the material that's been percolating in my mind and on the record and in different places.
Yeah, and that's got to be hard, right? Because I think last time we talked, you had recorded the album that came out last year, but you hadn't had an opportunity to really present it in the natural live kind of setting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, the first time the record was released October 2021, and the first time we played any of the music to a live audience was May 27th of this year. So it was a bit of a delay, but it was exciting because we forgot some of the music and we had to relearn it, and we used some different effects, and yeah, it was a cool experience to come back to it at a different time.
Yeah, I guess it's unique in that you hadn't had a chance to play it at all. Like a lot of people have had the same issue where the pandemic's happened, they've been unable to play shows, but it's material they've played live dozens or hundreds of times. But this is a brand new thing that. What was the response, I guess, to the record because that came out during the pandemic as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was my first record, so everything was new.
Yeah,
And I learned how much work you have to put in after actually having the album mastered and all of those things. Then actually trying to make physical copies of the album and the work and the promotion and sending it to people and asking people to listen and but it's been great. I'm super excited. It's an interesting journey, especially in this niche genre, which I'm realizing is called by society like chamber jazz, modern progressive rock mixed influenced chamber jazz.
right.
So it's a niche, but it's super interesting because I get to connect with people uh, from different parts of the world that are super passionate about the same thing that I'm passionate about, and it's a very interesting, very personal relationship that I have with a few people because of the record, and it's very special to me.
Yeah, that is a cool way to the niche you're in though. I mean, like you say, it's there's a lot of ways to describe it. How did you fall into that niche? I mean, like jazz obviously, and I know we talked about this a bit last time we did an interview, but that particular niche with the progressive rock elements and the chamber jazz, how did you kind of find your way to that small pocket of the larger jazz genre?
Um, well, in school, I tried to focus. I really tried to do what school tells you to do and learn jazz and learn traditional jazz and bebop and all of these things. And I enjoy those things. And I really love listening to Charlie Parker, for example.
Yeah,
But then as I kept playing, first I discovered Charles Mingus and I really fell in love with his music. And for a while, my compositions were in that avant garde Charles Mingus style, and then they slowly shifted to. I felt like I had permission to use non traditional jazz elements, especially doing like a contemporary performance degree instead of a specifically jazz degree.
okay.
I think gave me that room to expand and feel free to do that. Um, so, like on the record, you'll hear crazy textures and sounds from the both guitar and the bass, and I love doing that, and we're exploring some of those things live, and it's super cool to me. Um and it sounds almost like psychedelic
Yeah,
rock, and I love those sounds. And it's weird to me to have to classify it as psychedelic music because that's not really something I think about. I just love the textures and distortion. I think it brings a lot of weight to a
sure.
melody, for example, just having those textures. So I think it was like a organic transition into being in an environment which is open musically, to try different things. So I think I essentially mixed what was in my brain with like the organic environment and the possibilities of adding those different elements
Yeah.
that I'm also interested in.
How did being overseas contribute to the this sound? I mean, you like you said, you're from Ukraine, you live in Winnipeg, you're in Spain. You got to be kind of just whether it's consciously or not, gathering elements from all of the types of music and culture that is present in all those places, and it's some parts of it have to be rubbing off on you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in high school and throughout university, I started becoming more interested in Ukrainian folk music, and I've always had the dream of rearranging Ukrainian folk music in a jazz setting, in a more
Okay.
improvised, open setting, which is still a project that I would like to do in the future. And in Spain, yeah, like uh, being being around flamenco music and um, I mean even Spanish pop music
Hmm.
um, has tuned my ear differently to production, for example, and maybe some of these textures because pop music and production focuses a lot on textures and very specific things, which I'm finding are pleasurable to listen to. And it's kind of sad. It's like playing nylon tips, sticks on cymbals.
Okay.
It sounds good, but you're like, but I feel bad because it's not wood tip. And so I think the production, yeah, I think production of pop music in Spain is very good. They have it figured out.
Do you think that your future recordings are going to kind of be more influenced by where you are? I mean, I know that it's not going to take over what you're doing, and what you do is what you do. But did you feel like just that setting is going to lend itself to contributing to future recordings or even future live shows?
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely considered I've written actually I've released two singles now. The second one is in the process of being released, but um I'm releasing some singles which I wrote lyrics for.
Hmm.
And I'm passionate about that as well, and the lyrics are in English. So I think one of the things that I've actually considered is trying to write lyrics maybe with somebody else that can help me write them in Spanish,
Okay.
because I'm learning Spanish, but I'm not there yet. So I would like to co-write a song maybe in Spanish, in a different language, and connect more with that. Also, the environment, like just the physical beauty of Spain. I think uh, it motivates me in different ways, and it inspires me to write different harmonies and
Okay.
melodies.
Well, it's such a different landscape than here. I mean,
Yeah,
just everything about it is like they're like alien to each other.
yeah.
So this show you have in Winnipeg, it's part of the Jazz Festival. Were you specifically wanting to come back here and perform, or was this something that just sort of fell into your lap?
Uh, I applied uh to the festival just because um I thought it would be a good idea to see. I mean, if it would work out and
Yeah.
the time of year. But actually, before anything was confirmed, I had already purchased tickets to come see my family. Because it's a tough time, so I
Sure. Yeah.
felt like I needed to go back. Um, and then the jazz festival worked out, and so I'm excited to be back in Winnipeg for a month and also get to play the music. And it's
Yeah.
exciting because I'll be reconnecting with Kyle Cobb and Devin Gillingham, because we played as a trio for a while before I left. So that'll be super exciting for me, for them to experience the new flavors of the music, and to combine what we used to do with these new
Yeah.
things. And also, um, someone I went to school with in Berkeley is coming, and she's a vocalist from Brazil. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
super excited because she has this percussive, all these things, and she uses a vocal processing pedal,
Right on.
and so it's a very cool texture. So I'm kind of combining my past and my future universes.
And you could get a very interesting sound out of that, just based on backgrounds and location and the way people's experiences with music have progressed in the time you've been apart and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Are you playing anywhere else in Canada, or is it just the one Winnipeg show?
Just Winnipeg. But we're gonna play another. We're gonna play a trio show, um, at Red House.
Oh, cool.
Uh, just a small little patio set. Um,
I love those shows.
yeah,
They're so good. Yeah.
it's a great. Yeah.
Do you have a date for that yet, or is that still to be determined?
To be determined.
Cool, cool. Yeah, it's well, I'm glad you're back playing here because that record, like I've listened to it quite a lot since we originally talked last year, and it's what you're saying about texture, I think is kind of what I like about it too, is that it has a vibe, throughout the whole thing as a single unified kind of piece, and that's kind of what I like as far as jazz goes too. I don't know enough about the subgenres of the subgenres of the subgenres to be able to pinpoint either, but I mean, there's certain things that within a larger umbrella genre like that people are looking for, and I think that you've hit on something, whatever you want to call it, right? There's something very specific that you do, and it works.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that you're listening, and that you can appreciate the
Well, thanks.
things.
Yeah, I know that wasn't a question. That was just.
Yeah.
So what? I guess, like, is it hard to I know this year's been crazy, especially you're dealing with things going on with Ukraine and all that, as on top of living in a different country than Canada, and doing everything else. But being so kind of international in the way that this your career as a musician has unfolded, is it hard to, pandemic aside, get things together as far as figuring out when shows can happen, or who you're going to play with, or where you're going to play? That's got to be like an added level of challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, for when we played the show in Valencia, actually, we did our degrees in Valencia because
Mhm.
Berkeley is based there in Spain. But the people who were playing on the show with me were all also graduates of Berkeley, and some of them came from Barcelona, some came from Madrid, and
Oh,
one of them came from Italy. So we really had to plan this thing just to play one show, um, because I think it's tough. I'm in the process of hopefully finding a permanent band that we all feel comfortable and invested enough to maybe go on tour,
okay.
um, because it I think it's easier that way. You get to connect with these people, and you can prioritize some things like this tour, or something that we do together, and we can have our own things on the side, but as something that we do together on a
Well,
longer term basis.
maybe an interesting question about that then is especially since you're a drummer, what do you look for in musicians that you would like to have, say, in a permanent band? Like, what kind of sounds, what kind of, I guess, feeling are you looking for from other players in order to best kind of represent your music?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I love both guitar and bass, and I think that's why um I quickly figured out that like a piano trio was not my thing, because I love piano.
Yeah.
I really love piano trio. I even love playing in piano trios, but that's not the sound of what I want to show as a musician. Um, and so that's one factor of the instrumentation choices. Also, the guitar and bass are so flexible with effects and all of these things that we
Yeah.
talked about before. But as musicians, I think it's super important for me to find musicians that are passionate about the same music, and strong rhythmically, because some things that are written down might be hard to read, but if you just have a strong inner sense of rhythm, you can feel them.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's something important for me when I'm looking for musicians. Um, and for guitar players, I think someone who can really lead the band, someone who can phrase melodies beautifully, and yeah.
Well, I guess there's a lot of people you probably already have gone through so many other musicians you've worked with just over your time playing, right? I mean, good or bad, I'm sure you've kind of experienced a lot of different styles and feels and things like that from guitarists and bass players.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's, sometimes you find like this person can do this perfectly and you love that, but they can't do the other thing.
Sure.
And then this person can do this thing, but they can't do the other thing, so you wish you could combine to make a superhuman.
Yeah, yeah. Or I guess you just said, oh, you hire both of them,
Yeah.
get them both to do at the same time. Yeah, yeah. So how do the songs from the record work then if you're just playing with a trio? Because in some parts of the album there's more going on than just three people, obviously. Do you play just stripped down versions of that? Do you kind of reimagine them? Do you skip them entirely and do different material?
Well, we reimagined for the Valencia show, we reimagined it by having two guitar players.
Okay,
Um so we had a quintet. We had bass, two guitars, vocals, and drums.
cool.
And so the choir intro I rearranged to be one single vocal melody, highlighting the peaks of the original choir melody, and then it was accompanied by acoustic guitar. Um, and for the other parts, like the acoustic nylon string guitar was playing a lot of the vibraphone things,
Okay,
and the electric guitar could maintain its role. And for this show, it's gonna be super different because I'm making Nina sing some of the vibraphone parts.
oh cool.
So I hope that it all comes together, and it's gonna be super cool to have a different texture. Because we affected the vibes a little bit in post production for the record, but it'll be really cool to have so many options with the voice for texture. So I'm super excited about that.
How much time do you have to rehearse with all of the people you're bringing in or meeting here or again?
We're gonna have about 4 hours to rehearse for this show.
Seriously, that's it? 4 hours?
We hope. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's one thing about jazz, though, right? That it's good is that you don't necessarily need to be playing everything 100%. It's just not like being in a rock band where the songs are all verse, chorus, verse, pre-written. I mean, there's room for improvisation, obviously, and for kind of feel rather than note for note, right? But that's not a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit scary, but it's cool to have good musicians. So if I send them the music ahead of time and I give them recordings that they can listen to, I'm confident that they're gonna put in the time to be prepared for those rehearsals,
Yeah.
so that we just have to do the ironing in rehearsal, and then
Have you been like have they been sending you audio as well, or are you just sending it to them? Like, how does it work? Being apart and trying to get ready for this show.
Um, no, basically, I mean, I send them the album tracks, and then I make notes like,
Okay.
okay, so this person is covering this part actually because the instrumentation is different, or like watch out for this,
Right.
or things like this. And if they have questions, they're just gonna send me their questions, and we have a call or we have a text, um, return text.
Yeah. Yeah. Just doing as much
Yeah,
planning as you can, I guess, with the
yeah, like
options you have available.
ahead of time while they're practicing.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. It's a cool idea, and then you're playing at an interesting venue too, right?
Yeah.
How did that? Well, maybe I mean I know where it is, but just for listeners to know where are you playing the show?
Yeah, we're playing in a movie theater at the Cinematheque. And it's going to be interesting because I've never been in that movie theater to watch a movie.
Okay.
So, I think one of the things that I want to do after we play there is watch a movie there. Um, but yeah, it's going to be interesting.
That's a
I'm
cool
not.
venue. I mean, I've never seen music there. I've seen movies there a bunch of times, but the idea of a band playing there is kind of cool. I mean, it makes sense. I can see how it would work, just visually imagining what the setup looks like. But yeah, I didn't realize there were actual shows there. Is this a new thing, or did they just pick it for you, or how did it happen?
I think it's a new thing because it's a new series.
Right, right. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, because the Jazz
Yeah.
Fest is finally back after 2 years of
Yeah.
pandemic related. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah, so they've been doing different things.
I don't think you could have picked a better time to be playing in Winnipeg. I mean, this is the audience for jazz is there, obviously, right? And I mean, so hopefully you get a good turnout and people will want to check out what you're doing.
Yeah, I hope so.
What is the best way at this point to hear what you're up to? I mean, I know you have you have new singles on Bandcamp, um, and the album is out still, obviously. But where would you sort of send people online if they want to find out about upcoming shows, whether it's here or over in Spain or anywhere else?
I would say I'm trying to update my social media with those announcements. But I'm finding that I think the best way for me to communicate with people is to actually start an email list. So I just opened like a new link landing page where you
Okay,
can subscribe, and this will also give me the opportunity to connect with people through a newsletter um, type communication,
yeah,
which I think is better. I don't really like social media, to be honest,
it has
and
its problems.
it's very painful for me,
Sure.
and I much prefer having that email list, and it'll be great because I can send you maybe pictures of a score, or a video of me working on new things,
Yeah,
or ask, like, okay, who's checked out this musician, like what are your thoughts on this musician, or send you playlists that I'm listening to, or anything like that. I don't really want to do that on social media. It takes a lot of energy.
it does for sure. Well, and I guess you have all the benefit too of a newsletter being directly to people who voluntarily signed up for it. So you know already that they want to hear what you have to say and hear what music you're making and hear about shows. Whereas social media, you're just kind of screaming into the void, hoping somebody happens to wander into the room where you're screaming it
Yeah,
and be
absolutely.
affected by it. Yeah, yeah. So that's
Absolutely.
cool. Is that already active or is that something you're
Yeah,
launching soon?
it's active. It's I put my link tree, which is a very cool website. It's new to me, and it's like the thing where you can put all your links.
Yeah.
So I have my Linktree website on the Instagram, and one of the links is right at the top is like a special access email list. So if you go there, you can sign up for that.
Cool.
And but yeah, the other way is like find my email somewhere and just email me, or
Okay.
send me a message. I much prefer having not in-person conversations, but direct conversations with people, rather than
Yeah.
like liking something on some social media.
Because you
So
never know the intention behind that, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So just find me directly and you can message me or ask me questions. I'm always down to talk.
Cool, cool. And then the album is out still. People can find that, I'm assuming, on most of the streaming spots, and you also have CDs.
I have it's available on the streaming, and then I just added the physical versions to Bandcamp.
Oh, cool,
So you can order on Bandcamp the physical copy, or you can message me directly and we can get that sorted out.
awesome. Well, I highly recommend the album too. People should check it out. And then just before I let you go, what are the details of the show again?
The show is going to be June 17th. That's a Friday, next Friday, at 8 p.m. at Cinematheque.